Today I want to talk about this camera right here, the Insta360 Ace Pro, which is in collaboration with Leica, so you know it's an interesting product, and I've been using it for the past couple of weeks, trying it out in a variety of different weather conditions, and let me tell you, the weather did not cooperate one bit in the past couple of weeks. It's been a struggle, but I think I made it happen, and today I want to share my impressions of this camera with you. And without any further ado, let's check it out. So on the outside, this camera looks just like any other action camera. It is kind of bulky, and compared with the Osmo Action 4 and the GoPro Hero 12 Black, for example, it is on the bigger side. So you can definitely feel the difference in terms of size and weight when you hold it in your hand. But there are some things that make this camera worth the wait. One of them, without wasting any time, is this flip out screen, which I believe is just amazing. The way that's working, the way it's made, designed to just be usable without having to rely so much on the front screen. You can easily just flip out this front screen and start using the camera and just look at the screen directly without having to sacrifice any quality, because as we all know, those front screens on the action cameras are a compromise, pretty much. So you always have to change your settings maybe, or you want to take a look what is being filmed, but on this tiny screen on the front, it's not that easy to see that information, whereas here with this flip out screen, you can see pretty much everything that the camera is recording. You can change all of your settings on the go, and it all happens very naturally, very smoothly, and I'm a big fan of this screen. Now, besides that, we of course have a second screen on the front, which gives you rough information about the mode you're in, the frames per second that you're shooting in, whether you're shooting or you're not. There is a little LED light that shows you if you're shooting or not. But keep in mind, it's just a basic information type of screen that gives you a quick glance of everything that's going on with the camera. Besides that, we have a non-removable lens cover on the front, which in my opinion for an action camera is kind of weird, but from what I understood, Insta360 is changing those lenses for free in case you damage it. You just need to cover shipping to their facilities, and they will change and repair these lens covers for free. From what I understood, it just needs to be done in a controlled environment so you don't get any fog or any type of moisture on the lens when you change it, because it has to be glued in on the camera itself. Now that's definitely not ideal in my opinion, but I think it's still okay for what they're trying to do. In case there's something wrong with the camera, they will take care of it. On the side of the camera, you have the power on button to power on the camera and cycle to the different shooting modes. And on top, you have the recording button. Actually, there is one more thing about this camera which I forgot to mention, and that is that the bottom section is magnetic, so it fits with a magnetic mount, similar to the Action 4. Now the Ace Pro also is magnetically attachable to pretty much anything you want. So that makes it easier to swap between different mounts and quickly change something on the camera. Maybe when it's on your FPV drone, you want to quickly remove it. It's very easy to do so by just removing it from the magnets, doing your settings, changing your settings, whatever you want to do, and just mounting it back on the drone. It happens in seconds. And it's one of my favorite things about these newer action cameras, the way that they are meant to be quickly swappable from one place to another and change mounts in a matter of seconds. Now let's talk about the quality coming out of this camera. We have a 1/1.3 inch sensor co-engineered with Leica, which shoots 8K in 24 frames per second and 4K in up to 120 frames per second. Now this is kind of like a small gimmick, I would say, the 8K feature, which of course is great to have, but coming from a sensor on an action camera, it's not a real 8K that you would like to shoot in every single time. It's great to have if you want to punch in, if you want to have different cropping capabilities with this camera, you can use 8K, but the fact it's only in 24 frames per second is kind of a deal breaker for me, because I shoot in 25 and sometimes I shoot in 50. So of course it's not something that I plan to be using on this camera very much, but it's nice to know that cameras are trying to push these resolutions and frame rates further every single time they release a new camera. When we talk about the camera capabilities and the quality coming out of this Ace Pro, it's a very Insta360-like type of quality. Now you can definitely see that there is a lot of contrast being applied to the footage, and it's very punchy with the standard color profile, which by the way Insta360 recommends to be used. So you have a flat color profile, you have the standard color profile, and I believe you have a lot of different presets which you can enable on the camera itself if you don't want to color grade your footage later in post. I personally am a big fan of color grading. I tried filming with this camera in flat color profile, but to be honest, I don't really like the flat color profile on Insta360 cameras. I think what Insta360 recommends is the way to go. The standard color profile gives you a rich, vibrant color profile that you can still tweak a little bit, not too much, but the flat color profile is not ideal because this camera shoots in 8-bit. So you don't really have the capability to really push the footage that much in terms of the colors. When you do, you will see some breakup in the colors, you will see some artifacts, and that makes me not want to use the flat color profile. When mounted on my FPV drone, I have to say I tried it on 3 different drones. I used the Helion 10 the most with this camera because we had a lot of wind and it was difficult to fly FPV with pretty much any other drone that I have besides the Helion because it's a beast. But the Helion has a small jello problem, which I'm investigating right now because I was able to capture that jello with this camera, and I believe it's not the fault of the camera, it's mostly because of the drone. Because when I switched to my Cinewhoop, for example, or my 5-inch drone, I didn't see that jello, so I think it is mostly because of the Helion. So if you see any jello, keep in mind it's not because of the Ace Pro, it's mostly because of the Helion and because of that super strong wind that I flew in, because those were the weather conditions that I had to deal with pretty much. Besides that, like I said, the colors are pretty good with the standard color profile. I noticed that there is a lot of contrast and a lot of darkness in the shadows. You have to raise the shadows a little bit if you want to make your footage a little bit more visually appealing. Otherwise, it's just too contrasty, too dark in the shadows, and I personally don't like that because it's just very unnatural looking. But with a bit of play in post, or if you just apply Clarity Plus with the Insta360 Studio, you will see that you are getting some detail back in your footage. In terms of stabilization, I tried using the built-in stabilization of this camera, and I would say it looks pretty good, but I would probably only use it on the ground when I'm vlogging with this camera, when I'm doing some action sports. But when I'm flying with my drones, I prefer to use gyroflow. That's just how things are, because gyroflow gives you so much more flexibility to really play with the field of view, with how much smoothness you want. Maybe for some shots you want a little bit more shakiness to add some dynamic into your shots. For some other ones you want to have complete fluidity and you want to have maximum smoothness applied. So you really have that flexibility with gyroflow, whereas if you use the built-in stabilization, you have a couple of different levels, but that's just, again, that's baked in, so you don't really have that flexibility to readjust some settings in post depending on your taste. So like I said, for vlogging, for action sports, for things on the ground where you can quickly change your settings, I would prefer the built-in stabilization, the different levels of built-in stabilization. But for FPV, I keep that stabilization turned off so I can use gyroflow, use the gyro data that the camera records, and I think the results are pretty good. Overall, I think this is a good camera that Insta360 has made, but there are a couple of trade-offs if you want to use it, especially for FPV, which is my main use case for action cameras nowadays. Now, the weight is one of these trade-offs that you have to make because it is quite bulky and quite heavy, especially compared to the Osmo Action 4, which is not only smaller but a lot lighter as well. The other trade-off that you have to make if you want to use this camera maybe as your all-in-one camera is the fact that it uses 8-bit and not 10-bit to record your footage. So if you really want to color grade your footage and kind of push the colors, maybe introduce a lot more saturation in some areas of your footage, you want to play with some masking and apply some different filters to your footage, then this is not going to be ideal because, like I said earlier, the colors will start to break at some point because it's just not enough information. You have 8-bit versus the 10-bit video of these other cameras like the GoPro Hero 12 or the Action 4, where you can do that. Here, unfortunately, you cannot. So I'm shooting on both the GoPro Hero 12 Black and the Insta360 Ace Pro at the same time. I am currently lit from the back, the sun is behind me, and I'm doing that on purpose because I want to see how well these cameras will expose for my face. Will it be completely dark, or it will have a little bit of detail at least. Now I'm shooting in auto settings on both of these cameras. The only thing that I've really changed is wind reduction, which I've turned on because it's quite windy here, and hopefully you will be able to hear me. Let me know which one sounds and looks better down in the comments. Another reason why you might want to consider getting the Insta360 Ace Pro is because of the pure video feature, which is a low light mode which significantly improves the visibility when shooting at low light. As you can see, I'm shooting both on the GoPro Hero 12 Black and the Ace Pro from Insta360, which is in pure video mode, whereas on the GoPro we are just using auto settings to kind of let the camera decide for its own settings to use. But the difference that I'm seeing on both screens is quite significant. One thing that really surprised me on this camera is the wind reduction feature, which, especially compared directly to the GoPro Hero 12 Black, works so much better. You can really hear a lot better the sound coming out of this camera. You can of course always connect an external microphone to this camera like the DJI mic or the DJI Mic 2, and then just start recording better audio even compared to the built-in audio from the built-in microphones. However, even the standard microphones here are working great, especially for vlogging situations. With the wind reduction feature turned on, you will have good audio, so I was pretty happy about that. And all in all, with this flip out screen and just the usability of the camera, I think it's a great product, which, like I said, it's mostly going to be used for me on the ground. I think the power of this camera comes on the ground, not so much in the air on my drones, but for quick vlogging here and there, for this flip out screen that is going to make it so much easier to hold the camera like this and start vlogging straight away with the different frame rates, different resolutions that the camera offers. I think it's a good product. It's about $450 currently, which I will link the camera right down in the description if you want to check it out yourself, and if you want to read more about it on Insta360's page. But for now, I am quite happy with this camera. I think it's a good product, and I will keep using it, especially comparing it directly to the GoPro and the Osmo Action 4. It's an interesting thing for me to keep checking out which feature works better on which camera, and I think it's a never-ending battle, but it's always interesting for me to kind of dive a little bit deeper and do those checks myself, do those researches, and share them with you here on this channel. But that's pretty much it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know in the comment section below if you did, and don't forget to drop a like, subscribe for more videos like this one. This is Mike from Drone Supremacy. Take care, and I'll catch you in the next one very, very soon. Ciao.